Hey guys, today I'll be teaching you about chord tones, tensions, and avoids. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. What they are, how they are used in chords to get beautiful sounds. Let's begin with an experiment. This is called the C song. You can hold the top note C with me. Later you can play it. I'll be attaching this in the comments. So this is C, and I'll be simply playing this progression. C, 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 I'm not a terrible singer. I mean, I am a terrible singer, but this sounds terrible, not purely my fault. This is what this chord sounds like. So in this little experiment, I allowed the note C to function in different ways inside the chord. I'll explain it in a few moments. Basically, it was a 1, a 3, a 5, a major 7, a 9, a sharp 11, a 13, a sharp 9, and finally it was an avoid note. If you really dislike terrible tensions. And I'll be teaching you what the theory of this is and how you can use it. Okay, so look at this chart. This is a very important chart. And it tells me the following. Essentially, every time you play a note in the context of a chord, any note, or this one, it has a function, and the functions fall into 3 general categories. Okay, generally chords have 1, 3, 5, and 7. These are types of different chords. Of course, I can have a major chord, 1, 3, 5, and 7, the 7th note of the scale, or a 7th chord, 1, 2, 1, 3, 5, 7, or a minor 7 chord, and minor 7 flat 5 chord, half diminished. So the first row you can see here is what chord tones are. That's the first category. And chord tones essentially are what builds the chords. It's types of 1, 3, 5, and 7. It's the blue line that I hope you can see in this chart. And the chord tones are basically intervals above C. On top you can see the yellow row. It has 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5. These are distances above your root note. So if I'm starting on C, an interval of a half step is 1 fret, 0.5, okay? An interval of a whole step is 2 frets, okay? An interval of 1.5 tones is 3 frets. So these are the intervals above your root, okay? And how does this actually work? So if you have a root note, for example, C, and you add a note 1.5 steps above it, or 3 frets. You can see in the blue row, it says flat 3. That'll give you a minor 3rd or a flat 3. This is like a minor chord. Hope you know this. Okay, so the first possible function of a chord tone is flat 3. And if you move 4 frets, you'll get what we call a major 3rd. You'll get a 3, okay? So 3 gives you a minor chord, and 2 whole steps gives you a major chord. The next possible chord tone is flat 5, and that's when you have a triad, and instead of 5, it has a flat 5. So that's the next possible chord tone, and it will always be a full 3 steps above your root. Okay, this is how it sounds. This is a triad. If you move 3.5 steps above the root, you'll get your 5, your 5th, like the 5th of the scale. If you move 4 steps above the root, you'll get the sharp 5. If you'll move to 4.5 steps above the root, a minor 6, you'll get a 6, or in a diminished a flat 7. Don't worry about that, I'll explain it later. If you move a whole 5 steps above the root, you'll get the 7. Okay? You know it as the major 7. And if you move 5.5 steps above the root, major 7th, you'll get the major 7. This. Okay? So C as a chord tone can function as a 1. I mean, chord tones are 1, flat 3, 3, flat 5, 5, sharp 5, 6, 7, and major 7. And remember, think of them as typically the things that appear in the lower octave of your chords. And they build your basic chord. And the way to think of them is as very constant intervals, meaning a flat 3 of a chord is always 1.5 or a minor third above the root. Okay, it's like a constant thing. And a major third always sounds like 3, like this. And these intervals never change. So the first category of notes is chord tones. 1, flat 3, 3, flat 5, 5, sharp 5, 6, or we call it a flat 7 in diminished, 7 in major 7. I'll be getting into that later. Okay? And this is very important because this is how you build chords, and you can really practice the first step by simply building a simple chord, the C major 7, 1, 3, 5, and the major 7, the 7th note of the C major scale. And you can try simply moving it a little bit. So if you lower your 7, you'll get C7. You can hear it, I hope. And if you lower your third from 3 to flat 3, you get C minor 7. And if you lower your 5 to flat 5, you get half diminished. And if you lower your 6 one more time to the flat 7 position, you'll get the diminished chord. Okay? And that's the practice of it, and that's the theory of it. It means that these are distances that are fixed above the roots. Okay? And you want to memorize all of these distances. So you know, for example, that a fifth is always 3.5 steps above the root. So you're looking at the blue line for what the chord tone is called, and for the yellow line for what the distance from the root is. And when you want to know what it is in frets, you multiply by 2. For example, a distance of 3.5 steps, because it's a guitar and it's half steps, it's 7 frets. Okay? That's the first basic thing. Now let's talk about tensions. Tensions are distances above the root, but instead of writing, for example, here's C7 flat 9. It's not called, as you would expect, flat 2 because it's the lower second note in the scale. It's called flat 9 because typically in jazz, the tensions typically appear an octave above the chord, not to muddy the bottom range. Like this is the C9, C with C and D sounds muddy, but C with 9 sounds stable. So typically you add 7 to the actual scale degree and you get, okay, now a 9 sounds beautiful. New strings, guys, sorry. Okay, so flat 9 is what is located basically for the calculation a half step above the root. 9 is a whole step above the root. Sharp 9 is 1.5 steps above the root. We call this a minor third. Okay, there's 3 and there's 11, which is like the 4th note in the scale. There's sharp 11, which is 3 steps above the root, and there's flat 13. This is 4 steps above the root, and 13. Okay, so now look at that green line and let me walk you through it. Essentially, these are what we call tensions. And think about it, if you're cooking pasta, like your basic spaghetti, the essence of it will be, I don't know, the pasta and the tomato sauce. But you can think of these additions as all the flavors that give it all its beauty, all what's fun about it. Right? It's nicer to have all these colors for your notes. So that green line of tensions, flat 9, 9, sharp 9, 11, sharp 11, flat 13, and 13 are your spices, okay? And spices are a lot of fun, but spices need to be used wisely. Not every spice goes in every dish, right? So just like cooking, you won't necessarily use every tension in every situation. I'll be getting into that in a second, okay? So here I go, run through the tensions again, flat 9, 9, sharp 9, 11, sharp 11, flat 13, and 13, okay? Now, let's get into these weird spots where your notes can be interpreted in different ways. For example, look at the distance of 1.5 minor third above the root. That will be your third column, and it says that if your rooted chord is C and you're playing an E flat, it can be both flat 3 and sharp 9. So when is it flat 3 and when is it sharp 9? The basic answer is if you have a major chord, the major third overcomes the minor third and the major quality persists, so it becomes a tension. So it's called flat 9 when you have the major third as well. So if I have a chord that has both root C and E flat and E natural, then it's sharp 9, it's a tension. Right, that Brazilian sound, that's the sharp 9. And if I do not have it, I remove my 3, you'll get a minor chord. Minor. Now, sounds like a major chord. Okay, so that's the two possible interpretations of flat 3 versus sharp 9. What about our flat 5 and sharp 11? To me, it's really simple. Flat 5, if I have a C major chord, is a modification of the chord tone 5. It lowers it to flat 5. So that means flat 5 negates the existence of a natural 5. Sharp 11 is a tension and it says nothing about it. I can do both have a chord with a 5 and a sharp 11. Okay, that's the difference. Flat 5 changes your chord tone, sharp 11 does not affect it. What about the column? You look at the yellow line where you have 4, a distance of 4 whole steps, a minor sixth. It has two interpretations. It's a kind of the same principle. So sharp 5 happens when you raise your 5. For example, here, I've changed the chord tone, and now this chord will no longer have a 5. Flat 13 says nothing about the existence of the 5. It does not negate it, but typically when you play a flat 13, most of the time you won't play the 5 with. You won't play this. Usually you will omit the 5 anyway. So it's kind of academic. Flat 5 is a change in chord tone. Flat 13 is a tension. Now what about 4.5, major 6 above the root, the note A in a C chord? When is it 6, when is it flat 7, and when is it 13? That's got to be very confusing. So bear with me, it's not that terrible. Essentially, a 6 is a chord tone, and it typically substitutes the 7. It's a cool sound. It's a bit more chill than a major 7. This is major 7. And this is the 6, right? A bit more mellow. This is a minor 6. So 6 is a chord tone. Typically it appears in the first octave, but that's not how I judge how to call it. And a 13 is something that is the same note, but it appears with the major 7. So in this chord, I have C major 7. I have both the 6, the major 7 and the 6, and now it's called 13 because you add 7 to it. This is C major 7 with a 13. So 6 is when you don't have a major 7 or a 7, and 13 is when you do. So that's the difference between 6 and 13, whether you have a kind of a 7 or not. And what about the flat 7? This is the weird case in a fully diminished chord which has 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. The 7 can be lowered twice all the way to the position of the flat 7. In that case, it's called the flat 7. Okay, so these are the three functions of the A note in a C chord. Either a 6 in a chord that does not have the major 7, or as a 13 in a chord that has both the major 7 or 7 and the 6, and as a flat 7 in a fully diminished chord. Okay, I know that's a weird spot. And finally, we don't have any more collisions. Okay, so to summarize this point, now let me run through all the numbers from both columns. So here are the possible functions of every note against the C root. C as 1. Flat 9, like 9. Sharp 9. Or, if I remove the E, 3, flat 3. Here comes major third, 3. Here's 11. Sharp 11, which can be flat 5 if I don't have a 5. If I do have a 5, okay, 5. Sharp 5 or flat 13. 6. I'll do it here. Or 13. Or diminished flat 7. Sorry. Wait, I confused myself. Okay, sorry. Flat 13 and 6 or, let me fix that. Okay. Yeah, that's the fix. So this is A as 6. Sorry for the confusion. This is A as the 13. This is A as the 7th of a diminished chord. Okay? And 7. And finally major 7. Okay, so that's the different ways C functions. And the other category is what I call avoids. Avoids are situations where the C would sound terrible. I'll get into that a little later. Like here. Avoids are basically situations where you're adding a note that's gonna kind of destroy your chord, which you perhaps don't want to do. Okay, so let me explain, how do you cook with these tensions? That's the fun question. And to answer that, I want to give you a very simple principle. If my chord is major like this, I have other lessons on shell voicing so you can actually play these, but if I have a C chord, you'll notice that if I place any note a whole step above my triad, it's going to sound pretty cool. It's going to be a tension, right? This sounds good. I can a whole step above my E note is F sharp. Still sounds cool. A whole step above my 5 is going to be the 13th. Still sounds good. Okay? But if you try to do things that are a half a step above chord tones, you get a lot of tension like this, right? You hear this sounds. These are your avoids. This is a half step above the 3, and this is half step above the 5. Okay, so when you're using tensions, here are the basic principles. All chords can accept tensions a whole step above chord tones, like 9, sharp 11, and 13. What is a half step above the 1, 3, 5 of your triads will sound like tension, and you can't use it, except dominants, which actually do support tensions, because dominants are born unhappy. want them to be tense and dense, so they allow other tensions. So the result of that is that major sevenths accept 9, sharp 11, and 13. It's like a D triad over C. Seventh chords accept 9, sharp 11, and 13, plus the alter tensions flat 9, sharp 9, and flat 13. Minor chords accept 9, 11, and 13. It's like a C minor chord, which a D minor triad above it. Okay, 9, 11, and 13. And half diminished chords accept 9, 11, and flat 13. So let me summarize the key points of this lesson. Every time you place a note at a distance above your root, starting from a half step to 5.5 steps, it has a harmonic function, which falls into the category of an avoid note, something that's going to sound terrible on your chord, or a chord tone, which is your blue row with the 1, flat 3, 3, flat 5, and so on, or a tension, something that you can add to color your notes. And when we master this theory, I'll show you in next lessons about shell voicings, adding tensions, how this can be done to achieve all these beautiful chords. Okay, I'll get into all of that in the next installments. So please enjoy this. Look in the comments for the links both to the C song and to chord tones, tensions, and avoids. I sincerely hope this helped you. Please support my growing channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing. I truly need all the help I can get. Thanks, guys, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.